Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, and welcome to Muslim Mindset, a podcast dedicated to bringing you research, science, and human experiences with a Muslim perspective to inspire you to live purposefully, productively, and prioritize your mental health and well-being. My name is Aisha Aziz. Welcome to Muslim Mindset. I'm your host, Aisha Aziz, and today's conversation is one that could change the way you think about health. My guest is Pari Ansary, someone whose work in the world of naturopathic and holistic medicine has spanned over 20 years. Pari is the founder of Pure Earth Healing, where she helps people transform their health with simple yet powerful changes to their diet and lifestyle. She's not only a trained naturopathic herbalist, but also an expert in Unani Tibb, an ancient system of medicine that focuses on balancing the body and the mind. Pari studied at the College of Medicine and Healing Arts in the UK, and she's been mentored by Hakim Salim Khan, one of the world's authorities on natural health. What's fascinating about today's conversation is that we're diving into some core concepts that can completely shift how we view health. We'll discuss the 4 temperaments, a fundamental idea in Unani Tibb that helps us understand our unique body types and responses to life. Knowing your temperament is powerful. It allows you to tailor your lifestyle, diet, and self-care in a way that's aligned with your natural disposition. We'll also explore why Unani Tibb is different from Western medicine and what it has that Western medicine practices often miss. While Western medicine focuses on treating illness after it occurs, Unani Tibb takes a more preventative approach, helping us maintain balance and health before problems arise. And for all the busy mothers out there, this episode is especially for you. We'll talk about how even in the busiest seasons of life, you can take care of your own health and well-being. Self-care doesn't have to be a luxury, it's essential. And today, Pari will share practical tips for how to integrate wellness into your everyday routine. Please join me in welcoming Pari Ansary to Muslim Mindset. When I started speaking to Pari, we went straight in, so I don't have a proper introduction for you, but here is where I tell Pari about how I came across her work and why I asked to interview her for today's podcast. So I'm part of a book club, and in the book club we read The Temperament God Gave You. I'm not sure if
Yes,
you've heard of that
I
book.
definitely, of course, I read that book many times.
Yeah.
And my husband always actually recommends that book because he says it's one of the best books for assessing your own temperament, and it's written from a very Christian perspective, but then Muslims can identify and connect with it as well.
Right. So we were reading that for our book club, and then it has different sections, like your spouse is this temperament, and,
right.
and so when I read it, I was like, oh, you know what? I think this is my temperament. And then I went, and then I found the temperament that I thought my husband was, and I'm like, this is your temperament.
Right.
And then he's like, very skeptical, and he's like, okay, tell me about it, right? And then I read him the part where it's your spouse's temperament. I'm like, let me read you mine and tell me if this sounds like me.
Right.
And so I read it, and he's like, so certain parts sound like you, but not all of it. And then he's like, okay, read me mine. And then I read him his, and then he's like, that's not me. And then it's funny because so for him, it was melancholic that I thought he was.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And in that temperament, it says they're very skeptical of things. I'm like,
yeah,
see, you're
and
being
they're very
skeptical.
melancholics are very, very curious. They're very introspective. So they kind of like their thoughts can actually cause more problems than anything else because they overthink about things. And it's like they over worry, they overthink, they're very critical of themselves and even other people, but they're very introspective type of individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, okay, well, read me the others. And then I read him the other 2, and he was like, well, you sound like you as well. And so, I guess maybe it does. And so how does anyone really figure out their temperament? I was going through YouTube and stuff, and I found some of your some previous podcasts that you had went, and you had spoken about temperaments. So maybe we can dive in a bit deeper into that.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great. Yeah.
So for those who maybe read the temperaments and they see parts of themselves in all of the temperaments, how do you actually go about figuring out which one is your temperament?
So it's very interesting because we have all 4 humors within us. Every human being has all 4 elements, all 4 humors. We correspond to each of them at different times, at different phases of our lives. For example, as a very young child or a baby, you're more phlegmatic, and then you eventually turn into more sanguine. As you grow a little older, you might continue being sanguine, or you might even shift to being more choleric, which is the element of more fire. You have that energy, you have that, goal, that focus. So that drives you to like doing great things like finishing college, university, and so forth. And then as you age, you become either melancholic or more phlegmatic. Now, things obviously can, impact that, such as illness, such as a major crisis. Trauma can also change your temperament very, very quickly, and very radically. It's basically, we all have all four, and the process son was the most complete. He embodied all four temperaments, and you can see that in the way he was when it's time for battle, when it was time with his companions, when it was time at home with his family. So you can see that perfect array of all four elements being presented in him. And so we all have four humors, and the four humors are basically blood. Everybody has blood. Everybody has phlegm. Everybody has black bile, and everybody has what was the other one? Yellow bile. So all these four humors embody who we are. It's our makeup. It's our genetic code, right? And how we interpret our environment, how we react to our environment, is what makes up our temperament. So, for example, you can take all four of those particular humors and put in a person, and there'll be one dominant, one subdominant. So let's say somebody has excessive blood, or they have a lot of like energy, where they are driven, they're very extroverted, they're very sanguine, is what we call it in the humor of the blood, more sanguine oriented. But they also have a little bit of that phlegm too. They're a little bit phlegmatic at times. Occasionally, they tend to be a little bit more lazier than certain times of the year. For example, maybe winter, where they're more inward. But it doesn't mean that like, oh, they're all like, it's all, it's imbalance of anything. It just means that they're reacting to their environment in certain degrees, in certain ways, that makes them who they are. Like, it's different from personality. Sometimes people confuse personality. They're like, oh, well, you're more extroverted. It's not like that, because you can have an introverted sanguine. You can have a very extroverted melancholic, depends on the environment they're in and who they're with. Melancholic people are very, very extroverted around people who they feel comfortable with. It could be family, it could be friends, it could be very close, a very close circle of people that they know, that they feel they can trust. So they can become very extroverted at that time with them.
Why is it important for us to be able to identify what our temperament is?
So it is important because when you know yourself, you know a lot, and it's very, very crucial. As you get older in life and your lifestyle factors really come into play, how do you take care of yourself, that certain things can impact your health, can impact you emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. It's a continuous journey. So the more balanced you are in your life, and you understand your temperament, the better you're going to be in terms of how you react to your environment, how you are in terms of your, health choices and so forth. I had a client today come in, and she thought this whole time she was melancholic, which is more of the, the more, what is it called? Introverted temperament. And I said, no, you don't look melancholic. And I assessed her, and we did a little, activity to assess what kind of temperament she was. And she was shocked to say that she was more phlegmatic and more sanguine. So I said, this will impact you on how you, run your life in terms of your eating habits, your sleeping habits, how you are emotionally, how you're dealing with your stress levels and so forth. So it's very, very important that when you understand the temperament, you're basically rooting yourself in a deep tradition of being more balanced, more whole, more cognizant of your default reactions to everything, even people around you, your physical traits, for example, how you are in terms of your energy levels, your digestion, your, let's say, your sleep patterns, even. And then, even last but not least, like your capacity, your emotional tendencies, how you are when you process emotions. Like if you've had trauma in the past, how do you handle relationships moving forward? When you're married, how do you handle those relationships? Especially if your spouse, for example, we were talking about it earlier, has a different dominant temperament than you do. So how do you handle them? How do you expect them to handle you? So as we approach life, and as life comes in our way, and we have different challenges and different ups and downs, we need to know what our temperament is, because it's not only just for holistic healing and the benefits of that, but just restoring balance in the body, and then helping ourselves to kind of live like more of a deep, spiritual, more wholesome life.
So you mentioned earlier that during one phase of your life, you could be a certain temperament and you that could evolve. So how often do we like assess what temperament we're in? Because like if it's constantly changing, how do we know like this is the point where my temperament has now changed?
It's not going to constantly change like that drastically unless you've had like a serious illness, or let's say you've had a serious trauma happen to you. Usually you remain that same temperament throughout life. Now it does change as you become older, obviously more feeble. People tend to become more inward. I'll give you an example of my father-in-law, Yarhama, who passed away last year. He was a very, very, highly intelligent, very active man in his early 20s, 30s, 40s, even up to his 60s, I would say. Once he became around 70, he passed away at the age of 85. But and once he became around 70, you could see that inward shift. So he was very choleric, he had sanguine as well. He was very social, very extroverted, a person of a lot of ambitions and goals who he fulfilled throughout all his years of living. And then towards the end of like maybe 69, mid 70s, I would say, he kind of declined. He became more phlegmatic, more inward, and more introverted. And you could see that drastic change because he had dementia. He got a little sick. So you could see that shift from going from choleric to more of a melancholic and eventually a more phlegmatic state. So that's what I mean about the shifts. It's not like wake up one morning and then you're all of a sudden a sanguine, and the next morning you're going to be a choleric and so forth. It's over time, and obviously illness has something to do with it. How you live your life in terms of lifestyle factors. I mean, now functional medicine doctors are looking at, not just like treating the symptoms and things like that, but looking at the root cause of illnesses. But Unani Tibb practitioners, Ayurvedic, Chinese medicine practitioners have been doing that for centuries and, many, many years ago, for many, many purposes of, trying to identify the root cause of a person's illness or what made them more imbalanced. Because when health is restored, you're more balanced. When it's not restored, you become more imbalanced in certain aspects of your life, whether it be emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, and so forth. So our goal is to identify who we are in terms of knowing ourselves, to become better Muslims, more practicing, more spiritual connecting ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also to help ourselves in terms of our emotional growth, our spiritual growth, our physical growth. And that can actually help us to live a more, robust, healthier, more balanced lifestyle.
Are there ways that we could kind of self-assess? Because I remember seeing one of the ways that someone had said is if you, with your wrist and your thumb and index finger, if you can
Yeah, I
easily
wonder
rub
who
it
told you
around.
that, because I actually told people about that too.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so are there ways like that that we could kind of self-assess, or do, do we need to actually go to someone who is really, someone like yourself who's really well versed in this to be able to tell us?
So, yeah, that whole thing, that's more of a cheat way or code of how to assess yourself. But really, to identify your tendencies, your emotional tendencies, your behavioral patterns, to give you an understanding of what temperament you are, you really have to go through a practitioner. But also, you can do another way of assessing yourself by just, besides books and quizzes, there's so much information now on the net. But another great way is to just look at the elements, look at the way the elements, how do you respond to those elements? The air, the fire, the earth, the wind, and so forth, and water. And then look at the seasons. Like right now, we're in the winter season. Things are more passive, right? Things are moving very slowly. It's more inward. People are people are more, home oriented. They're not going out as much. Animals are hibernating. So there are people like that. If you look at winter and what it does to you when you go outside and observe that natural force of winter, you can kind of identify, okay, this person is more of a winter person. They're more phlegmatic. They're very calm. They're introverted. They're easygoing, for example. They're very peaceful. Winter is a very peaceful season where things are more quiet. You can hear the stillness, right? And phlegmatic people are like that. They're very, ambitious in the way they talk to people. They're very they avoid conflict. They don't like, issues. They sometimes might lack motivation because they're more introverted, more inward. So you can see that corresponding to that season of winter. Again, looking at spring, what happens in the spring? Things come to life. Things are more outward. Animals start coming back to life, coming out, and it's a time of growth. The trees start blooming, the flowers start blooming, so forth. So the people of this particular temperament, the spring, are sanguine. They're very outgoing. They're very extroverted, very sociable. They're very optimistic. What happens when you see spring? You can see it. It's beautiful. It makes you feel good inwardly, right? So there are people like that. When they come into a room, people like notice them very quickly. They thrive in these social settings where, they might struggle with finding they don't struggle as much as finding friends, as much as like, for example, the other temperaments. They are very, very friendly. They're very talkative. They like consistency sometimes, and then sometimes they lack that. So you can see that in that regard, like how they identify to that particular season. And that's a really good way to assess the temperaments and what it does to you. You can also look at another way as a practitioner. We look at physical traits and energy levels. Like if somebody comes to me and they're having like the slower energy, just walking into the room, they have a very relaxed demeanor. They're very content to stay very still when they're talking to me. They have more of a rounder body type. Their skin is more soft and maybe more moist. That can automatically tell me that this is a particular temperament, like a phlegmatic. Whereas the opposite, if somebody comes into the room, they are very cold, they're shivering. For example, they have a very low energy again. They have a tendency to becoming more fatigued. Maybe they have some issues in terms of like nervous system issues or whatever. That tells me that particular temperament is more of a melancholic, and so forth. So you can kind of assess it that way, but also their decision making. For example, sanguines and cholerics are very decisive. They're very quick to decide something. They're confident. They're very focused on, for example, getting the results right then and there. Very optimistic. Whereas the other two temperaments, your melancholic and your phlegmatic, are very indecisive. They're very curious, but also cautious and careful. They pay more attention to detail rather than just getting the job done or just saying, okay, this is how we're going to do it, and so forth. So you can see it in that way as well. Social interactions. So if you're going to for example, like if you have a project or you have like some sort of group setting where you're seeing even children socializing. I used to be a teacher and I could see within my students, just giving them like tasks and things like that, or maybe having them work on group projects, who I can pair up with the choleric, and the choleric works well with the phlegmatic, and the sanguine works well with the melancholic, and so forth. You can kind of even see at that time, at that age, like how they are in terms of their way of interacting with a particular project, and how they are either enthusiastic and talkative like the sanguine would be, or the student that's a choleric would like to be giving orders and maybe very confident on solutions and telling people to do this task and this task. And you might see the other two temperaments more laid back and having more, listening skills, like listening to the, person telling them what to do and so forth. So you can see it in those natural responses.
You mentioned that as a teacher, you would pair certain students together based on their temperament. So I wonder if that could kind of translate into our relationships and specifically marriage. Do certain temperaments work better together? They say opposites attract. So
Mm-hmm.
if someone is a bit more slower, and are they attracted to someone who, or will they appreciate that different quality in someone who's like more decisive? Are there certain temperaments that work well in a marriage and certain temperaments that wouldn't work well?
Yeah, there are. There's a book called The Temperament God Gave Your Spouse. So that's a really good book to also get to read. It's a good read. Obviously, keep in mind that it's written from a very Christian perspective. So, Allah created us from different tribes and different races and so forth. So it's okay to marry somebody who's like you or even different than you. It's how you work up on yourself. So it's not about like pointing out people's faults. Let's say your husband is more of a choleric and you're more of a sanguine, and that cholerics are very decisive. They're very quick to anger, or let's say they're very quick to doing something. They don't reflect as much as, for example, maybe a melancholic does. It's okay. When you know those issues, the goal is not to fix or to change the person's temperament. It's to how to treat it in a way where you're respecting that person's temperament, but at the same time, you're understanding that, okay, this is maybe their pros and cons or whatever, and this is what I need to work on. So even if you have somebody that's an opposite temperament than you, it's not to like say that, oh, that's not going to work out in a relationship. Or even if they have the same temperament, the whole point is to really get to know yourself better and to avoid any conflicts. If you know that you have certain weaknesses within that temperament, your whole goal is to kind of work on those weaknesses so you can have a meaningful and more compromising relationship. You see that also with children, like even within my own family, my sisters and I, we all have different temperaments, and sometimes we don't get along, right? But we work with those issues, instead of like going against it, you kind of have to like notice how they respond to stress or challenges and work with it rather than against it. So the whole point is not to like, just find somebody exactly the same temperament as you, or even different. Even if you work with those type of individuals and you see that, for example, if a phlegmatic wife who's very calm and peaceful, easygoing, and she's married to, for example, a choleric man who's very like high strung, very, leadership type of determined type of temperament, he might have weaknesses of impatience, and he might have weaknesses of dominance or quick temper, but both of them have to work together to struggle and to kind of meet, middle way where they can avoid some of these things. But Islam teaches us how do we'll deal with these type of things, right? We have patience, we have sabr, we turn to Allah, we seek harmony, we don't seek to cause war and issues and things like that. So, and marriages is very, very important because you have to learn how to balance your strengths and weaknesses on yourself, work on it, and make sure that you are trying to understand each other rather than like, and complement each other rather than like pick and fight and choose the weaknesses from each temperament. I hope that makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense. And, even in Islam, it's like make 70 excuses for your brother. So it's like one of the excuses could be that's just their temperament.
So I know that book, God Gave Your Spouse. I think she mentioned, I mean, I read this many years ago, but she did mention that certain temperaments do work well together. Like, for example, if you have a sanguine who's a very extroverted person and the melancholic who's more introverted, it really works out well because the sanguine brings a lot of joy and happiness to the melancholic, who's very cautious in nature, right? As we explained earlier, they have a lot of energy, they're very social. And sometimes melancholics need that. They need a good friend to push them forward, right? So that type of relationship might work really well together because also the melancholic provides the sanguine what? It provides them more attention to detail, more grounding, which the sanguine needs. Because sometimes if you're looking at a sanguine, they're going from one job or one interest to another, like constantly like, moving around, just like wind, air. It doesn't stay in one place. So the same thing with the sanguine. So if you have somebody who's a melancholic and they're married to sanguine, their job is to kind of, seek the best in them and try to provide grounding. Whereas the sanguine also does that with the melancholic, provides optimism, energy, more happiness, and so forth. And potential challenges could be that, if a sanguine is too carefree and the melancholic is more structured and serious, you have to work with open communication. You have to work with, obviously, going back to patience, which is very essential to avoid misunderstandings and arguments. And then the choleric and phlegmatic, which she mentioned in her book, really work well together as well because the choleric temperament is very, they're very hard driven. They're very leader type. They're like the leadership qualities are very goal oriented. They also are very ambitious. And the phlegmatic has a very calm and patient demeanor and is very easygoing. So the phlegmatic actually softens that choleric intensity in a way where, not driving out their fire, but just, giving them a little bit more, calmness and peacefulness and emotional stability, hopefully. And the choleric actually motivates the phlegmatic because the choleric will be like, get up and let's go do this and do that. Whereas the phlegmatic is not easy to, just get up and move around, on their own. So in a way, it can actually complement each other.
It's so interesting how human beings can be so different. I think I first kind of realized this when I was getting to know my husband because he is melancholic and I think I'm probably choleric. With my husband, when he would assess over different situations and like really take his time to answer, I was just wow, like who actually does this? I know this is how you're supposed to be. You should assess situations and decisions and like kind of wait things out. But I literally had no idea how to even do that. How do you actually sit with something for a while when you can just make the decision right there,
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting because it's like cholerics they have like this incredible determination, right? So it actually balances. So because you are choleric and your husband's melancholic, it actually balances in a way where he provides you that emotional stability, but also making you look at the attention to detail rather than just focusing on the big picture, because cholerics have a tendency to focus on the big picture, right? They have a goal, they want to do it. It's like they're going to do it, right? But melancholics pay such attention to fine detail. They're almost perfectionists and they drive themselves crazy in the head because of that. But they can, he can provide you that, and you can provide him that determination to kind of help balance their tendencies of being very introspective or very analytical. So in a way, it's a good combination as well, but you have to work with it, right? So that means, maybe if you're impatient with certain aspects of a decision or whatever, and they're slower in terms of cautious or whatever of the decision making, you can kind of practice a mutual understanding where you guys come to the middle way and kind of see where, okay, we need to do this and this and this, and this will fulfill my needs and this will fulfill his needs and so forth to avoid conflict. But it's fine. Every temperament can work together because we all have all four in us. We all have those four aspects. Like I said earlier, the humors that come out at certain times of our lives, maybe certain issues, situations, and things like that. We always have a dominant and a subdominant, but we have to work with each person because even our children can have different temperaments, not just our spouse. Our parents can have different temperaments. Our siblings can have different temperaments. People at work, our colleagues and so forth can have different temperaments, So you have to just learn how to work with that. And, the more balanced and more whole you are in terms of understanding yourself and making yourself become more in tune with your body, the better you understand other people and their temperaments.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but is temperaments kind of like a tool or a branch within Unani Tibb? What is Unani Tibb and why? How is it different from Western medicine, and where did it originate? Is it something that, maybe is like within the Islamic tradition? Is that what we should go towards when we come across a certain illness or something that we want to work on? How is it different from Western medicine?
So it's very ancient. It's known as Greek Arabic medicine. That's what Unani Tibb stands for. So it started with Hippocrates. And eventually during the Islamic Golden Age, what happened was that not practitioners, but other healers came about like Galen and then Ibn Sina. And even though the roots are in ancient Greek medicine, it's not considered Islamic medicine per se, but it was very influenced by Ibn Sina. Later, at one point, Ibn Sina, and you have another healer, Al-Razi, who was another physician, Muslim physician, who later expanded on the concept of also merging the concepts within Islam into Unani Tibb medicine. So Unani Tibb as a standalone, it's not really considered Islamic medicine. So people get that a little confused. It's actually known as Greek medicine. It's basically, it was influenced by Hippocrates and Galen. And then Ibn Sina came around, and up to the 17th century, a lot of physicians and healers were using his canon of medicine as a predominant way of healing patients. So it has a very, very long, historical context. It's very preserved. You can see even to this day, people use Unani medicine in India, for example, in Pakistan, even Afghanistan. My great uncle was a Unani Tibb practitioner in Afghanistan, Kabul. In India now, like in a particular place called Kerala, they have like a huge Unani Tibb university where they train Hakims, over 200, 300 Hakims to become practitioners of Unani Tibb medicine. And then they integrate their understanding of medicine with Islamic values. So they have like that Islamic values in terms of ethics and what Islam says about health and wellness, for example, incorporating hijama, incorporating the sunnah foods, what the Prophet ate, what he didn't eat. For example, things like black seed oil, dates, and, kusta hindi, for example, can be some of the things that they can incorporate within that whole spectrum of healing. And it's basically Unani Tibb's main purpose, and what our goal as practitioners when we deal with patients is to basically help that patient maintain balance. Their balance within their mizaj. Mizaj means their temperament. And looking at Islamic teachings on how to take care of their body, because obviously your body is a trust from Allah. Allah gave our bodies to take care of ourselves. And if you take care of your body, you can do more ibadah, you can have more energy. And even the Quran and Sunnah, if you look at the Prophet, how he took care of his body, he did hijama a couple of times a year. When he had a headache, he did hijama. He would take black seed oil. He would take kusta hindi for certain ailments. There was different treatments of how he took care of himself, and we have to embody that, and we have to follow that. Sleeping is one of the lifestyle factors, United Tibb medicine, making sure that you're getting adequate sleep. You're looking at the sun in the morning, for example, that can definitely impact your health and nervous system. And when you're more harmony with that, your whole spiritual being will be better, your mental, your physical, and your body becomes more balanced within your mind, body, and soul. So Unani Tibb really influences us to incorporating also Islamic medicine to really make adjustments to our lifestyle and really look at what resonates with the prophetic traditions. And that's what Ibn Sina, if you ever get his book, Canon of Medicine, I think all 4 volumes are actually translated by Layla Bakhtir. But you can see if you want to go on that journey of reading some of the things that he mentioned about ailments and diseases and stuff like that, it's a wonderful thing to have to put in your library. But also there's another book called The Traditional Healer's Handbook by Hakim Chisti. He also goes over the 4 temperaments and the benefits and what to eat, what not to eat, and so forth. So really, Unani Tibb I feel like it's a very diverse concept of identifying your intuition, your constitution, your health, but is really rooted in those 4 humors: the blood, the phlegm, the yellow bile, and the black bile. And it really helps people understand their predisposition of how they behave, what kind of illnesses are they prone to having, and their lifestyle needs. So, going back to my patient today, the client that came today, she was like, "Oh, I thought it was melancholic the whole time because my friends were assessing me and things like that." And I said, "No, you're this temperament, this temperament." And then we had to change her whole lifestyle, because she was doing the wrong things according to that temperament. I said, you should eat less dairy, for example. You should have less cold foods. You should have more warming foods, more spices in terms of like ginger to help balance your particular temperament. So it's very important to know that. And I think functional medicine is moving in that way because they do talk about lifestyle factors, but they don't really assess it according to the mizaj of a person, the temperament of a person. They just kind of say, okay, you need to do this, this, and this. So merging the 2 sciences of Islamic medicine, Unani Tibb medicine, it's very, very, it's amazing, mashallah, what you get out of it.
Nowadays, I feel like with so much information, we always hear of, okay, this is the, like for a while, I was hearing a lot about turmeric and it's like the benefits. Like there's always trending health, like there was avocados for a while. There's always trending health foods or supplements that people should take. But how do we kind of balance what's trending versus what actually works for us, and like where should our focus go towards?
So first, identify your temperament or work with a practitioner can tell you what your temperament is, and then go on the journey of understanding that, or in that mindset that everyone is unique. You're unique, and the person next to you is unique, and people in your family are unique. And health and nutrition is not one size fits all. There's a lot of holistic practitioners you can find on social media, and they have like this trend of keto diets, and then they move on to, vegetarian diets, vegan diets, gluten-free diets, so forth. The whole point is that one thing might not work for one person, and there's differences in their temperament, there's differences in their body type, their genetics, their lifestyle, and these trendy, like you mentioned, these trendy type of food things and habits have lack consideration for a person's individual needs. It may disrupt your body's natural balance. I'll give you an example. When I first started taking Tibb medicine in England back in 2013, when I started my journey in Tibb medicine, I was doing a lot of apple cider vinegar. First thing in the morning, would take some little apple cider vinegar with warm water, and I would drink it on empty stomach because I thought, this is healthy. This is supposed to be good for you. I was doing my own little self-research on all of this stuff. And then I told Hakeem, because he saw me as a patient one day before I started the Tibb journey of studying with him. And he was like, "What do you have for breakfast?" And I said, "This is what I have for breakfast." He said, "You're basically drying yourself out." And I said, "But I thought apple cider vinegar is really good for you." He said, "No, not for you. It may be good for somebody who has a very different body type, a different, disposition, different type of temperament. But for me, it was not good for me. And it was drying me out. I just didn't consider, I didn't know much about that, what it can do for you and what it can't do for you. So he told me to stop taking it and do this instead." So that's the problem with these trendy fad diets, is that it can really disrupt your body's natural balance. And quinoa, or let's say ginger, can be very universally beneficial for every single person, right? But for somebody, for example, who has a very cold, or let's say a hot temperament, like somebody who says ginger is good and they have a very, very hot temperament, it might aggravate them and actually cause more imbalance. Maybe they're more prone to getting hives or skin issues due to excess heat in the body. So they need more cooling properties. They need more cooling foods to kind of balance their extra heat in the body. So these are fueled by, unfortunately, by clever marketing, and they don't really look for the person's best interests, unfortunately. And then sometimes they use limitations. They don't really explain the potential side effects, even though, it can do more harm than good.
So some people who may be skeptical over like alternative therapies like
Mhm.
herbalism and hijama, they think it's just like niche practices. Do you have like any stories or any insight into perhaps clients or certain illnesses that Unani Tibb can actually solve that Western medicine has missed the mark on and isn't the answer for?
Yeah, so I'm not suggesting that people should abandon modern medicine. There's a blessing in that. There's a blessing to have physicians. There's a blessing to go to the doctor, have surgery if you need to have surgery. The goal is not to like dismiss, conventional medicine and just focus on holistic healing, holistic practitioners and so forth. The goal is to kind of bring your body to balance. And there's been a lot of studies done on Unani Tibb medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, in addressing the root cause. So sometimes when you go to the physician, unfortunately, they don't have a lot of understanding of nutrition or how food plays such a crucial role in your healing. Like Hippocrates said, food is medicine, right? And everything you can find in your pantry or your kitchen can be a way of you starting to heal or starting to, become become more balanced in your body by cooking the right foods, by using the right spices, by avoiding processed foods, avoiding excess, for example, sugar and meat and things like that. So it's really looking, the holistic approach is really looking at the root cause, supporting the body's natural healing process. And every person's body has a natural doctor. We call it the natural physician. That's what how Hippocrates used to call it. So everybody has innate natural doctor. The body knows how to heal if you give it the right tools. If you get the wrong tools, the body become imbalanced, and you can't really. By that time, it might be late if you're doing too many wrong things, and then finally you're put on some medications, or unfortunately, you have to go through surgery or whatever. It might be too late to kind of like say, okay, I want to. It's not too late, but I'm saying that if you're reaching at the critical point where you kind of like suppressed your body's natural healing mechanism, then you need to kind of light that up back again by using traditional methods, by maybe even integrating the two, maybe integrating the natural route of, going to a holistic practitioner and also going through your physician, regular physician, where there's strength in science and also traditional wisdom. And you can get the best of both outcomes, and you can also do your own research in terms of exploring what can I do if I'm taking medication, what can I do to bring my blood pressure down, for example? What can I eat? The doctor has given me, blood pressure medication, but I'm also going to change my food. I'm not going to just focus on medicine alone and just to help me heal. I'm also going to maybe incorporate, for example, more leafy greens in my diet, maybe more juicing, for example, less red meat. Maybe I should walk a little bit more to help reduce that blood pressure. Maybe I should reduce my toxic overload in the house. Maybe I should also sleep better, maybe get out and walk, every day, maybe 45 minutes or to an hour. So incorporating the two worlds can be very beneficial for a person. So I'm not saying to just forsake medicine, forsake Western medicine and all of that and just go through Unani Tibb or find holistic routes. You can experience the best of both worlds by just making a few lifestyle adjustments and really looking at food. So even if you're a skeptic, everybody eats, but just try to eat healthier, right? Every now and then, you can have a little bit of sugar or whatever, but 80% of the time, try to eat healthy. 20% of the time, have your cheat days. Be disciplined. The more disciplined you are, the better you're going to have in terms of your overall being and health.
I'm surprised that you said Unani Tibb isn't like Islamic medicine, because that's actually something that I thought it was as well, because so many aspects of it I feel like is already in Islam. So it's kind of like, if you follow like the Sunnah, then you're already kind of in this world, because that's like the Prophet like would walk everywhere, and like he would walk to the masjid. And then in Islam, when you walk to the masjid, like every step is ibadah. And the way that the Prophet ate, and like with just 3 fingers, and that helps your digestion so much. Like digestion, walking, like all of these things are part of Unani Tibb. And so it's interesting that it's not Islamic medicine. But do you see other areas of overlap where it's something that is like within Islam, like it's a form of worship, or it's something that is encouraged in the Sunnah that is also part of Unani Tibb? Do you have any other examples?
I think so, because it incorporates, Unani Tibb itself incorporates all the physical, mental, spiritual well-being, and that's harmonious with Islamic teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, right? According to the Prophet ﷺ, he said that, Allah has not made a disease without appointing a remedy. So everything that we have on our earth, whether the herbs that we use, the plants that we use, the food that we use, has some sort of remedy for it, except for one disease where the hadith states old age, right? Old age and death. So you can't escape those two. But you can definitely, look at the perspective of Unani Tibb and how it encourages lifestyle factors, dietary moderation. Don't eat too much. Like the son of the Prophet didn't eat too much, right? He didn't have to meat every single day. It was sort of like a treat during that time. He loved the leg of the shoulder of the lamb. He would eat that during festivities and walimas and things like that. And that very resonates with the prophetic tradition, where Unani Tibb says, don't eat too much red meat, for example, in moderation. Have more good fats and wholesome grains and things like that. And so over time, the Muslim practitioners have added that Islamic understanding within Unani Tibb. So they basically, Muslim scholars like Ibn Sina, Ibn Razi, they've translated and preserved a lot of those Greek ancient medical texts, and they've kind of expanded it, and they incorporate the Islamic values, the Islamic teachings. So it's more of a holistic approach integrated with Islamic medicine in it. So, but yeah, Unani Tibb, going back to your question, is not, some people think it's Islamic medicine. It's not. It's actually Greek medicine, and but it really aligns with Islamic values and teaching, and especially the Sunnah medicine of how to live and the prophetic way. The more clear you are in terms of like your Sunnah practice, the more closer to the Prophet and understanding the way he slept, the way he ate, what did he like to eat, what did he not like to eat, so forth. You can slowly incorporate that in your life, and you can see that how balanced your mind and body and soul can feel, inshallah.
So you've been working in this field for over 20 years. Can you share your personal journey with us? Like, why did you choose to go down this path, and why have you stayed in it in the past 20 years?
So I started just because I lived overseas in Yemen. So I was a young mom and I didn't know what to do in terms of when my children got sick and things like that. So I was always like looking for natural remedies, just my personal goal of understanding like how to treat without medications and, other things. I just was always interested in that holistic aspect of healing. And I just feel like if you are always looking for medicine to solve the problem, it's like a cycle, it never ends. You're gonna have to deal with side effects and so forth. So I always was interested in prevention rather than the cure. And I wanted to treat when my children got sick overseas, when they came down with some sort of illness or they had symptoms of like runny nose or a fever. I always wanted to look at, how can I use natural remedies to kind of help them? So that's how my journey began, is just with, for example, you can have somebody with chronic migraines that medicine will not help solve that problem, but they find relief after doing hijama, for example. And I've seen that in my own case studies that I've done with people with migraine headaches or migraines, that when they incorporate hijama, they come more regularly. They do the hijama therapy. They're also eating well. They're taking magnesium, for example. If they're lacking that, that they thrive, they become better. So, and they don't need to have to rely on medication or over-counter drugs to kind of help with their chronic headaches. The same thing with somebody who, for example, who has digestive issues. Let's say they have a lot of intolerance to wheat or grains or things like that. after balancing their temperament and adopting certain like spices in their foods, for example, in their cooking, also even adopting like certain herbal remedies and tinctures, they feel like, they feel better. They feel like they can, they feel less digestive issues. They don't have to go and do surgery or go through medications after medications to kind of bring their bodies back to whole. So in our today's world, unfortunately, we're relying so much heavily on these, going back to wellness trends, fad diets. Constant information can feel very, very overwhelming. Unani Tibb and Islamic medicine teaches this more simpler, going back to basics, doing what your grandmother did. Stick with that. My grandmother, when I was young, she used to tell me, don't eat too many cold things, and she would give us like almond milk. She would crush the almonds herself, bless her hands. And she would make us like this very calming almond milk with a little bit of cinnamon and honey, and maybe put a little bit of turmeric in there. And now there's like all these lattes. Now you can do turmeric, black spice latte or whatever. But this is what our grandmas used to do. Our grandparents used to do this. And it was just prioritizing the simplicity of everything. Don't complicate everything. Make sure that you're aligned with your natural rhythms. Get up in the morning with the sunlight. Look at the sun. Go outside, do some grounding, start your day with a good breakfast. Your biggest meal should be at breakfast time. I tell my clients all the time, unfortunately, we live in the Western, we have the Western lifestyle, and our day is not like it is back home overseas where people eat their largest meals during the day. When you go to somebody's house or home overseas, they don't invite you for dinner. They invite you for lunch or breakfast. That's the biggest meal because they know that the digestifiers are really higher at that time of day rather than at night, where you shouldn't be eating your biggest meal at night. So prioritizing your natural rhythms, sleeping. People should be turning off all lights, no screens, past 10 o'clock. It's like you should be completely in deep sleep, having good dreams. I also ask people about dreams. Like, do they see color in their dreams? Do they see black and white? Do they see scary dreams? That can reveal a lot about a person's health as well. Their diet, their movement. Are they moving every day? Are they doing some sort of like, not necessarily cardio, going to a gym, but walking? Walking is the best medicine for a person, right? Walking at least 30 minutes to 40 minutes a day. And then just, these are not like promises or quick fixes, but over time it's sustainable and it's easy to do. And then inshallah, you'll feel better. So focusing on these types of therapies and habits can, like hijam or Unani Tibb or, Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, can be really, really, subhanAllah, more beneficial in the long run rather than a short time quick fix of taking medicine. And so, but listening to your body is very, very important. Just being, having simple habits every day, teaching your children to develop those simple habits, not bringing too much processed food in the home. Sugar is a big problem too. So, it's something that people are getting addicted to sugar. Like it's causing a lot of issues. So, teaching your children at a very young age, to be very healthy, cooking good foods, having them understand their body has a potential to heal. All of that can make them also, inshallah, when they grow up, to become more in tune with their body so they have less disease and illnesses. Also, environmental factors, making sure you're not using any toxins in the home, because the air we breathe, unfortunately, we can't control what's going on outside, but in the home, we can control what kind of the detergents we're using, soap, shampoos, making sure that we read the labels carefully. And then when you incorporate some of these, small changes, it's just a wellness hack, right? It works well and you feel good. And then inshallah, you can teach that to your, children and your family members, inshallah.
So going back to your journey, so once you became interested in this field and you were already kind of making your own medicine for your kids to treat, their runny noses and such, how did you then go about turning it into a professional career?
So I actually studied with Hakeem in 2013. We were living in England. My husband was doing his doctorate at the time. And I read his book, Islamic Medicine by Hakeem Salim Khan. It's an easy read. You can just finish in a day or two. And I actually went to his clinic, his college, and I wanted to become a student of his. And after I read that book, I knew that he was offering module 1 and module 2 at the time. And I started thinking like this would be a good journey for me to kind of embark on, because I have young kids. I want to, help other people as well, help my family members, help myself first, and then help my children and my family members to become more healthier, more better. And so I started that field of Unani Tibb medicine. I did 4 years with him at the College of Medicine and Healing Arts. Alhamdulillah, we've had the privilege of hosting him the past couple of years. This year, inshallah, in May, he's coming to Canada as well, Toronto. And he's also going to be coming to Maryland this year to do a lifestyle factors course, a 3-day retreat. But it's just witnessing the transformative power of traditional healing. My son, when I was living in Yemen, he was, I think, about 2 years old. He had very bad case of food poisoning, and my husband was traveling at the time. And I remember, like, just wondering what I should do. Doctors are not really very skilled there, unfortunately. So I went to another neighboring city called Seiyun, which is about 30 minutes away. I knew that there was a doctor there in Seiyun that spoke good English. And so I went to take my son, and he gave me a bag, like literally of probably 10 medications, of antibiotics of all sorts. And I don't know what, because I think my son had swallowed some very old Play-Doh, and his stomach, he just kept vomiting. He was dehydrated. I didn't know what to do. I was like, this is the third, fourth day. He's not getting better. And I was just beginning my journey of just my own self research and things like that. I wasn't actually Unani Tibb practitioner at the time, of learning, what I can do to help him. And then I just looked at that bag and I said, Ya Allah, please help me. Because I was like, I cannot give all this to my son. And then I remembered this homeopathic remedy, sulfur 30C, that I had. And I just looked it up, and I had this little book, a little, very old handbook of homeopathic remedies and what they can do for different ailments. And I just started experimenting with sulfur and then Nox Vomica, which is 2 remedies. And I started giving him that. And I noticed that the fever broke. Alhamdulillah, he started regaining his appetite. And then he just started feeling better. Complexion on his face returned to a better complexion. He just started playing a little bit more. And I, not to dismiss, I know that I could have used those antibiotics, and I could have, taken the prescriptions that the doctor had given me. But my mother instinct just told me, just do this, let's see how this works. And if it doesn't work, then we can go back to the antibiotics. So I did that, and I was like, subhanAllah, just that in itself taught me that, there's power in things that Allah has given us, and natural remedies and plants and herbs and, homeopathic remedies, and in food. And so I became a believer. And then when I started my journey with Hakeem Salim, I started doing case studies with other mothers and other women who have different types of issues, and looking at their pulse, looking at their tongue, their nails, getting idea of what their food is like, their food intake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then coming up with a case, for them, like a diagnosis for them, and as well as like a treatment plan for them. And I could see, like, maybe in 4 weeks time, they come back to me, I'm getting better in this. I don't see improvement in this. So I kind of tweak it according to the person. But I just noticed that really helps, so then that's how I continued on.
I'm curious to know about any challenges that you may have encountered, because, even with like Western doctors, if I go to a doctor and I say I have this issue and he prescribes me medicine and I take the medicine and it doesn't work, then, I'll go back and I'll be like, hey, what did you do? Or especially if it has a side effect, or if it doesn't work, I'm going to not be so happy. So have you had any, like, what are the challenges when it comes to having your own practice and being in this field where people are coming to you and, like, they want you to solve the problem?
The challenges are just because I feel like nowadays we don't have a lot of patience. So when I do deal with people with, for example, chronic illnesses, sometimes they've exhausted all means. They've gone through the medicine route where they're taking conventional pharmaceutical drugs. They've done the surgeries. They've done everything the doctor has told them to do. But then they come to me towards the end. They're like, it's not working. I'm getting sicker. I'm getting less patient with this medicine. It's like, so I feel like the challenges are just now, how do I, retract my steps and kind of help them to go back to where they were feeling healthy and what they were doing. It's sometimes a missed opportunity, because for you to have sustainable health, it's actually long term. It's actually being patient with the process and knowing that sometimes, even if you're going through the holistic methods, you might have a healing crisis, which means that you might get worse before you get better. And that's okay, because the body's trying to balance itself out. So even though medications for them could be very life-saving, very essential, I feel like the challenge for me is, like, people just want a quick fix. They just want it right then and there. I need to heal right away, And sometimes when you go through a healing crisis, it can be very scary. They're like calling me up after a week. I'm not feeling dizzy. I feel very lethargic, whatever. And they get very panicky. And sometimes I just say, just rest, hydrate, and just let the process of healing occur. That's all you need. Just be patient with the process. Think positively. Your mindset is very crucial. If you have a negative mindset, your cells of your body will hear that and it will give you a negative outcome. But when you're thinking positively, you wake up in the morning, oh, today's going to be a good day. Inshallah, I'm going to do well, things that are pleasing to Allah, things that are conformity to the Quran and Sunnah. I'm going to be a good mom. I'm going to be a good wife. I'm going to be a good healer. Allah is going to put barak in your day. And that's the key. But with a negative mindset and saying that I give up, I've tried everything, nothing's working, I'm getting sicker, unfortunately, you are going to get sicker. Having a positive mindset is really, really crucial to your overall healing process and journey. And so when patients do come or when clients do come with a healing crisis, I tell them not to panic. Sometimes that will occur, and you will have symptoms, old symptoms that might come about. Like I had a client who had severe eczema and I taught her how to have, positive affirmations in the morning, but she was getting panicky. She was like, I'm getting worse and I'm not getting better. I said, just take it easy, do what I tell you to do, and inshallah you get better. And then over time, because she trusted that journey, she became better. But there's people who don't want to be patient. They want a quick fix because modern medications teach you you get to pop the pill in your mouth, put the Tylenol in your mouth, the paracetamol mouth, your fever will go down automatically. Who wants to go and do like a Epsom salt bath or essential oils on their feet to bring down the fever? Unfortunately, people don't want to go that route. And so because they're not patient with themselves, unfortunately, they're not going to be patient with the process. And so those are the challenges I face every day when I see clients who just want their acne to go away or their hypertension to go away. It takes time, it takes at least, if you start changing your diet and changing your lifestyle, it's like a 90-day journey, I would say. At least 3 months, give it 3 months to really feel your optimum best. And then do the things that are in line with your unique temperament. And inshallah, you'll get better over time, but also trust in Allah. The shifa comes from Allah. We are, as practitioners, we can only do so much, but the actual shifa comes from Allah. So trust in Allah, trust in the process, ask Allah to help you, keep up with your daily Quran reading, your litanies, there's du'as for shifa. I also incorporate a lot of Islamic spirituality when I see a client. And I also work with, people. I do afia healing as well, which is like releasing trauma from the body. A lot of our illnesses are due to stuck emotions. And Unani Tibb also teaches us that as well, because we also look at, it's not like you take the individual apart. It's a whole mind, body, soul, approach. And so you look at how their mindset is. Do they have issues that they want to deal with? Do they want to release any bad emotions? So you have to teach your clients to do those type of things. And then challenges will always be there, whether you're going through the conventional route or the allopathic route, there's always going to be, unfortunately, challenges, but you just have to be patient with the patient. And sometimes maybe that person is not ready for holistic healing. Maybe they're not ready to be changing their kitchen pantry, for example, or incorporating more healing spices in their foods. They're just not ready. But inshallah, one day they will be ready. So you have to be patient with them too. I can't just say it's going to be a quick fix or they're going to get better overnight.
So what would someone, they're like, I really want to work on myself. What are some daily practices, or like where can that person start in order to start their healing journey?
So main thing is to just we look at 6 lifestyle factors in Unani Tibb medicine. So the first one is your air and environment. So making sure that the environment in your home is a clean environment. Negative energies do come in, making sure that there's people in the home or yourself reading Quran or you're playing Quran, doing some sort of prayer together, doing your adhkar, which is like your litanies, your al-rad every day, because that negative force can stay in the house and that can make also people sick. So you want to incorporate good positive energy in the home. Even diffusing oils like frankincense or burning frankincense can actually incorporate, angelic magnets in the home. So the simple things like that. First thing. And then the second lifestyle factor is your food and medicine. Starting with small, drinking, hydrating water is really, really essential. Good quality water. I would invest in a good water filter of some sort. Now there's something called hydrogen water, which is, some people are leaning towards that to kind of give them good hydration. Having a good water system, drinking good water, maybe start incorporating less sugar in the meals or in everyday consumption, having less red meat, for example, good, maybe fish, adding more fish, or maybe if you're vegetarian, having good wholesome organic supply of vegetables, and maybe even like having like a breads that you can make yourself, like sourdough and things like that, simple things like that. You can start with that. And then the third lifestyle factor is sleep, trying to make sure that you're getting enough sleep, at least 6 to 7 hours a day. If you are certain temperaments, maybe taking a little short, quick cat nap in the day, like a siesta, maybe around, after lunch or before lunch, can also give you energy. But sleeping is very crucial. If there's one thing that I recommend, is just making sure your sleep is very balanced, because sleep has such a big impact on your blood sugar. It has an impact on your mental health, on your physical health. If you don't sleep enough, you can't do more ibadah too. So making sure that you're getting good enough hours of sleep. Obviously, Ramadan is an exception, but because there's barakah and that Allah gives us to sustain us. But outside of that, try to sleep no later than 11 o'clock at night. Try to wake up with the sun. When you wake up for Fajr, Hakim used to tell us that you'll see barakah in your day when you wake up early. So that's like the special secret sauce of the day, is when you wake up early, you do your ibadah, you do your litanies, you do your awrad, and then you start your day. There's more barakah in the day when you wake up early. And then looking outside, doing some sort of like sun gazing, looking out in the sky, can really help you with your nervous system, relaxing the mindset. And then the fourth lifestyle factor is your physical activity, doing some sort of walking or light exercise at home. Some people like to join gyms and things like that. That's fine. Fitness centers, that's okay. Doing some sort of sport, maybe having like an outing with your family, or you're playing ball, or, doing some sort of lifestyle. Physical activity is very, very crucial. And then emotional stress, how you deal with your stress, maybe doing some sort of breathing exercise, learning how to breathe properly, doing that to kind of help, relax your nervous system. And then the last but not least is your elimination retention, making sure that you're, going in the bathroom, you're not constipated, you don't have excessive diarrhea and so forth. And also eliminating any type of toxic stress from your body, eliminating negative emotions, turning to Allah to help you in that. So doing those simple things, habits, can stack up over time, and then inshallah becomes routine for you. You become used to it, and then when you're out of your routine, you feel something's out of balance. So being really in tune with your body to help you to govern everyday life is very, very crucial. But starting your day with positive affirmations, doing your prayers on time, doing some sort of salawat, really spirituality is really, really key. Teaching your family to do those things, because a lot of our diseases and illnesses, besides emotional toxic stress that we have from years of trauma or whatever, is also spiritual diseases. Maybe incorporating some sort of sacred knowledge in your home, or you're reading a book together with your family on the disease of the heart of Imam Ghazali, or reading a book of assistance is a good book, or Bidayah Hidayah by Imam Ghazali, the beginning of guidance, reading some sort of thing like to kind of help you with that spiritual growth. And when you're eating well as well, you can think better, you can focus better, you're not as moody, you're not as temperamental, you can do more ibadah and things like that. So they're all together intertwined. It's not like one size and then, one approach and that's it. Everybody's healed. You have to incorporate all those 6 lifestyle factors, but really be in tune with your body.
Something that's been on my mind a lot lately is, I guess because I am a mother of 2 young children, and you also mentioned that you have young kids. When you're, being a mom, you kind of tend to put yourself last. And like what you were just saying, like you said, sleep is the most important. But when you have like a 3-month-old baby, or like even the first year of the baby's life, like he or she is not sleeping, so it's like, how can you sleep? And then when you have multiple children on top of that, it's like, even if the baby, let's say, was up all night and then in the morning he's sleeping, but then you have your other toddler that's up and awake at 6 a.m. What would you recommend for going through that stage of their life where, it's like you're in so much of the giving that you can hardly take care of yourself?
Yeah. So just as moms, like, I was living overseas in Yemen dealing with 3 little kids at the time. So I understand what you're going through. It's not that, as moms, we always want perfection sometimes, but what we have to understand is that you won't always be able to do everything perfectly, right? It's okay to have some days of just like ups and downs where your self-care routine is not really in harmony. You're not really doing everything for yourself to kind of, become more healthier. The key is not to become perfect in your self-care routine or to help yourself heal better. The key is consistency. You really want to be consistent. So even if you miss like a walk outside in the park, Don't be hard on yourself. It's okay. There's another day. Tomorrow you can do it. Take the kids out, for example. It's even good for them to be outside, get that fresh air, get that sun in their eyes, that vitamin D and so forth. So you need to just, as a mom, you need to just block out time, a little bit of time, even if you have like 5 minutes a day. Just sit down on the couch, do some deep breathing, close your eyes, visualize a safe space, visualize your body healing. Say something positive about yourself. I'm a good mom. It's okay. I'm having a hard day. Even though, you always say, even though, instead of saying I'm having a hard day, but even though I'm having a hard day, everything's going to be okay. Things are going to work out, inshallah, by the power of Allah for the best interest of me, right? And so you need to set aside a little bit of time, whether it's in the morning or in the evening when the kids are going to sleep, for relaxation time, even small pockets of time for just reducing stress, just breathing, walking with your spouse, for example, drinking like a warm almond milk, with some almonds in it and some saffron in it, can really help you. And then engaging your children in healthy lifestyle factors, like trying to balance motherhood, being a good mom, but then also teaching your kids to be good kids and so forth. It's very, very, it's a challenge. It's not easy, but maybe taking a walk together after dinner, cooking a healthy meal with your children, letting them chop some vegetables, making sure that you're obviously watching them, having them eat themselves rather than you force feeding them, family workout day, for example, going outside, playing in the sandbox, let's say going on a stroll near the beach or something like that. So setting aside some time, even if it's not daily, at least once a week, to do something healthy, to do something that's more goal oriented. Let's say you have a goal or a vision board of some sort, having a healthy meal together. Like, let's say Saturday's your day, you can have a healthy meal together. Everybody preps in the kitchen, everybody helps, can also help reduce that temptation of going for fast food or restaurant food all the time with very bad seed oils that they put in, unfortunately. And, those things can over time develop into consistency and good lifestyle habits, and then eventually become a routine for you guys. But making time for your health is very, very important. So even doing some quiet moments during the prayer, after the prayer, like Sayyidina Fatima Zahra, the Prophet said the best thing for her to do at night when she was asking for some help is to say the Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah akbar 33 times. Every night when you say that, Allah helps you, facilitates your everyday activities, being a busy mom at home and, dealing with, maybe if you're working or even if you're not working at home, it's just a full-time job as it is, but that can help you. Allah will help you. So just remember that Allah's there, and then to turn to Him, and you'll find barakah in your day. I mean, it's amazing. When I was living overseas, the woman, like, they wake up early, they pray, they make bread with their own hands, they feed their families, and they start cleaning. Then it's lunchtime, they make that. And there's just so much barakah in the day because they start their day right. They start their day remembering Allah, and Allah helps them throughout the day. And that helps them reduce their stress too. So they're, constantly turning to Allah. Their ibadah is revolved around everything that they do. So that's really, really important to keep that in mind for your spiritual and emotional well-being, inshallah. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, there's family, if there's friends, maybe doing an outing with a friend, if you need some time alone, or maybe let's say you're having too much stress at home with the kids and stuff, going out for like a little tea break or whatever, and a picnic, maybe like an indoor place, if it's the weather permitting and so forth, it can be something that can relieve some of that stress. So try to think positively, start your day with positive affirmations. Say, today's going to be a good day. I'm a good mom, a good wife. Inshallah is going to help me. And then you'll see the barakah in that day. But always never forget your prayers, praying on time. Doing those things can really impact your overall day and how you are as a person. And inshallah, you become, a good beacon of light for your own family, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Sister Pari. I think with that, I'll wrap it up here. Thank you for sharing your insights. And I definitely learned a lot from our conversation. And I'm sure listeners also really appreciate your time and insights that you've shared with us. So jazakumullah khair.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you. Take care, and keep us in your du'as.
If you would like to contact us, please email muslimmindsetpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.